What is up, everyone? Crunchy Frog here, and today is June 9th, which means today we finally had the COD Direct, shortly following the Microsoft Direct press conference here. Basically, the first time that they've actually shown off any information on Call of Duty Black Ops 6 that will be releasing later this year. Now, earlier on in the day, I was only able to kind of watch it while I was out. I was kind of out and about, so I didn't get to really watch it too well. So I went back through later this evening and really watched it, a couple times through, and just wrote down all of my thoughts on everything that was shown, kind of what they said, let you guys know, kind of summarize as best I can, while also giving my thoughts and kind of predictions on how this will all play out when the game releases. Now, obviously, this is a first look, so some of these things may change. Some of this is speculation, or something you may see in a video might not be how it's actually represented in game once we actually get our hands on it in October, everything like that. So take a lot of this with a pinch of salt, obviously. And then additionally, I know there was some extra info that like creators who were able to play the game early have been releasing and stuff like that. I'm not going to cover any of that in this video. Maybe I'll make another video here in a day or two kind of going over all of that type of stuff. I'm just going to be covering everything that they covered directly in that video, that that little press conference type video that they did today. That way we're not going too far over the time limit and stuff like that. So if you guys enjoy content like this, make sure to leave a like, as it helps other people find this channel. And if you would like to see more videos like this, I try to do a bunch of COD news and gaming discussions and reviews, as well as XDefiant. Now that that game's out, make sure to hit the subscribe button so you can check in on all future videos leading up to COD Black Ops 6. And of course, if you would like to support the channel monetarily, press that join button below for some exclusive perks, while also, once again, helping me upgrade my system and everything like that to produce even better videos for you guys going forward. So with that all out of the way, let's get right into it. So they had a nice little video intro that kind of summarized a lot of things, so we'll kind of breeze through this since we'll be going in more detail kind of later. But one of the first things that stuck out to me is the graphics look just kind of pretty similar to recent games. Nothing too stand out. Obviously the environments look pretty good in some of the snippets they showed, but this is just kind of emblematic of the gaming industry as a whole. No longer are we kind of on the edge of our seats with new game announcements like this for cutting edge graphics. We're kind of getting to the point of diminishing returns for this, but overall it still looked like a pretty decent game, even in the early access footage that they showed today. They did say, they kind of alluded to the fact that they've had such a long dev time, but they did say, and I quote, "new level of polish and innovation across all parts of the game." Once again, this is like the longest dev time of any COD. So I'm wondering if this will actually be the case, with everything shaken out weird the way it has the last couple of years, and games being pushed back and rushed up and all this kind of crazy stuff. We'll see if this actually is polished. We'll see where we're at on day one, if we're all complaining about crazy bugs, or just lack of polish, or not enough features, stuff like that. But, I know the last time that they had a longer runtime with like Black Ops 3, whenever that 3-year dev cycle started, Black Ops 3 had some of the most content of any COD game ever whenever it released. So hopefully we start to see something like that here. They also addressed the early 90 setting, which is interesting because nothing has been set here, to my knowledge, before in Call of Duty. Specifically stuff like the Gulf War and kind of all the, events surrounding that. So it's finally new territory for COD, which, we're kind of running out of. Pretty much any other, time period except for like World War I has been covered by COD. And obviously everything before that, not too much gunplay, so it wouldn't really work in a COD. So we're kind of, running out of new things to try, but I'm glad that they are going here and taking us into the 90s, especially when I felt the portions of Cold War that I've seen and everything like that. I didn't play too much of it at all, but they captured the 80s really well, so I hope they kind of do that here. I know the original Black Ops did really well with the whole Cold War setting and the 60s and 70s. Next up, they mentioned they just kept going on about, and again, you'll be seeing, I'll just kind of loop the trailer in the background, or the entire direct in the background, but so you'll probably see it, not hear it. But they kind of talk often about like they try to make it seem very edgy, like the story's very edgy, and not everything is true, and like that's kind of how the whole initial marketing, plan has been throughout this whole thing, and it just seems, I don't know, a little corny sometimes. That's just me. That's a very subjective point. By no means, take that to heart, but they really try to drive it home again, and at a certain point, it just almost seems gimmicky. I don't know. I just had a note written down. It's nothing too crazy. I'm sure the game or the campaign will still be a cool story and all, but it's just something I had to note. Like, it seems like they're trying too hard to emphasize how gritty and edgy it is, of a story. Next, they touch on it, and I'm not going to go too deep because I do have a whole section for this once they explain it in more detail, but they kind of previewed the Omni movement, which was leaked about a week ago on Twitter. Everyone was talking about it, that you kind of dive in all four directions, you run in all four directions, stuff like that. Kind of like I know they were using like Max Payne footage, I think is the game, that has a similar thing. You can dive to the left and right and stuff. So we'll go over that later, but they did touch on that there in the beginning. And then finally, they did tease that round-based zombies is back, and thank God. The last couple of years, I did have a little bit of fun with Modern Warfare 3 zombies, but now it's time to get back to form and get back to the zombies that all of us fell in love with, which is the round-based, curated, really polished experiences. So from there, we'll go straight in, and I'll just kind of, like I said, follow this direct and talk about everything in the order that they did, as well as some things that I may have noticed, even if it's off topic. If I see something in a gameplay snippet that they're showing while they're talking about something else, I will still mention it here. Again, you'll see this kind of going by, behind my voice here as it plays on the screen. But first thing that they mentioned is that the team tried to make the story more bombastic and blockbuster. And, I have another point about this here, a couple bullet points down, but I am a little worried about just how over the top they can get here, because obviously Call of Duty is kind of known for being a little crazy in that regard, a little over the top and a little corny in terms of blockbuster moments. Obviously, people hated, I think it was World War II or Vanguard, one of those two, where there was like a, 2-minute train crash scene that was just too over the top. It was like Michael Bay on steroids. So hopefully they don't fall too far down the rabbit hole on that. They do mention that there's multiple ways to do a mission, which could be cool. Some of the times they've tried this, I feel like they try this every couple of years in COD, and they market it like it's a first, never before seen, thing to COD. But it could be cool. Some past iterations have been kind of lame, and you find yourself just saying, just give me the normal COD experience at the end of the day. But if they execute it really well, it could be, really cool, and a cool way for the series to kind of innovate and maybe iterate in future versions going down the line. So we'll just have to see, obviously, once the game is in our hands here in October. I am interested to see, like I was saying, how the 90s are reflected in video games. I was obviously only alive for the latter part of the decade, and I spent most of that time shitting myself in diapers. So I can't really speak, a firsthand account of the 90s, but at the same time, we've seen enough in media to know, what it was like, and I really hope they capture that here, especially since, again, this is a new era, so I hope that they're able to really dive into that and help shape the game around that. They say that it is set after Cold War and tied to kind of the mid-80s flashbacks. I think 1986 is when the flashbacks happened from Black Ops 2. So if you remember that, you went like back in time, not really back in time, they're like flashback sequences, but you were playing Rescue Woods at some point, and then I don't remember too much about it, but I remember riding on a horse fighting the Chinese army with, I think it was like Afghan soldiers or something like that that were on your side at the time. It just a whole bunch of crazy stuff happened, but apparently this story will tie into those flashbacks and kind of pick right up after Cold War, where that ended. Frank Woods is back. He's actually seen in a wheelchair like we see him in Black Ops 2 and kind of later years of Black Ops 2 and everything. So he is back, as they said, a through line to kind of connect all the stories. And they said that, obviously now he's out of combat, so we'll see him more in a support type role. They do go into pretty big detail about the new characters, and I'm not going to break all of them down. I've seen a lot of people already make comments on Twitter about it being kind of Netflix-ized. if that's a word, just kind of super, trying to cram every type of person into, the game. But I'm not going to get into any of that. All these characters could be super cool or they could be super lame. We won't know until we literally play the game, so I'm not going to speculate. Again, I've seen several people kind of getting mad about the choices made on Twitter, but it doesn't matter to me. If they're cool whenever we get the game, then they're cool. If not, then we'll dissect that later on once we get the game. Next up, they said that they prioritize mission variety, kind of building off of their bombastic and blockbuster comments they made before. So that's fun. I think Modern Warfare 2 it was that did this really well. All of my CODs recently have run together, sorry. But I think Modern Warfare 2 was the game where, even in my review of it, I said they did really well in terms of the, you know, not doing the same thing twice. Everything felt interesting and each mission felt new and varied and stuff like that. Again, I'm wondering if it could be too much, but we'll just have to see. They are taking us rather to tons of different locations. Again, it could be a little tonally shocking to the user, to the player. If you just it sounds like it could be too much. Like they're trying to cram too much stuff into this campaign. And obviously, if it flows nicely, if the story makes sense, you could go to 100 different locations and it doesn't really matter if it makes sense in the context of the story. But sometimes COD tries to do a little too much sightseeing and not enough storytelling. And that's where they run into issues. They brag about how you visit 13 different countries in a 4-hour campaign, and it just ends up being like some crazy ADHD like fever dream of you know what I mean, like just somebody's Pinterest page of their dream destinations, their bucket list, as opposed to something that actually correlates to a story. So when they keep harping on this and rapping about this, about how great this is, that how many locations we're going to, in my head, I just keep thinking, just give us a good story. I know we're not expecting, HBO level writing from a Call of Duty game, but at the very least, give us a little something that makes sense. Don't just send us all over the globe for no other reason than your animators wanted to, create that environment. So that's about all I'll say on that. But definitely a problem that we've had in a lot of COD games in the past. And next up, they do mention that there's multiple ways to kind of play the game and approach different situations. So not everything has to be guns blazing. Sometimes you can talk or barter your way or persuade your way out of fighting, kind of like you see in RPGs, like Skyrim and Fallout and stuff like that. You can avoid fights and gunfights by being a little more charismatic in certain situations, or more level-headed in others, stuff like that. So that'll be cool. Like they said, and I agree, it'll probably lead to more replayability. I usually don't. I'm going to be honest with you. I've only played certain COD campaigns multiple times. For the most part, I only play them through once, and then I usually forget about them. And I think that's most of the population, to be honest. So, for lack of a better term, who cares about replayability? But credit where it's due. I think if they do it right, it could be really cool. They also mentioned new enemy types, and I hope they don't go too overboard with this. Like, I don't want it to start feeling like an RPG, and I know you have to evolve the formula at some point. You can't just shoot at a million, mindless grunts all day, but that's kind of how Call of Duty was made, and that's kind of how a lot of the campaigns are. So, I hope they don't go too crazy with this. They showed a couple weird archetypes. So I just hope they don't go too crazy with that. Give us some challenge and have some fun with it without being too ridiculous. They also mentioned how the AI is improved, which they've said I think the last 2 or 3 years, and it seems like it in some cases. So I think they're just tweaking that even more, so that gunfights feel a little more organic. It's not just a shooting gallery where the same idiot pops up and goes back down undercover 5 different times. They have much better AI technology now, so that they actually kind of respond how a human would. So that will be pretty cool. There will also be more open-ended missions like Modern Warfare 3, which again, Modern Warfare 3, they were kind of boring. They were kind of not so great. They had some good things about them, just overall not good. If they, actually had the time to develop them and flesh a lot of things out and actually build it from the ground up to be fun as an open-ended experience for some of the levels, I'm all for it. I actually had a lot of fun in that level where you play as Soap. uh, was that Modern Warfare 2 or Modern Warfare 3? All the games are running together, like I said. But the mission, I think it was Modern Warfare 2, where you play as Soap and you're like crawling through the like the Mexican city and stuff like that, hiding from Shadow Company, and it was super open ended. That was fun, but some of their other ones that were just glorified pieces of the Warzone map, not so much. So we'll have to see how they execute this. They also showed off some new equipment that you can use. Being a Black Ops game, you know how they do that. Some of it looks a little gimmicky or anachronistic, but it is what it is. Again, trying to bend the setting maybe too much under the guise of their Black Ops. They could have experimental tech. Like there's a homing knife, stuff like that. And it also, breeds the question of how much of this stuff finds its way into multiplayer and the balance therein. We've seen that kind of be a problem in past CODs, so we'll just have to see. But they did mention that the RCXD is back, which is super cool. I miss that little guy from from Black Ops 1, so it'll be cool to get that back and use that in campaign. Finally, they touched on the safe house. Which I didn't play Cold War. They said there was a safe house in Cold War, and I've heard some good things about it. The concept seems really cool, kind of like that hub that I know some previous Black Ops games had. I think Black Ops 2 had one like that, or Black Ops 3. Just like a nice home base. I think Treyarch, that's been kind of their whole shtick. And it works really well. Overall, nothing too crazy, but sounds like this time there's some opportunities for exploration, finding maybe some environmental storytelling and stuff like that. But we'll have to see how well it's used. And, it comes down to what can you do to make players actually want to spend time in that environment as opposed to just skipping as quickly as humanly possible into the next mission. So we'll see how they incentivize that and how well they build that out, or if it's just a gimmick that they put in this video and no one looks back at ever again. Now they move on to another segment here after talking about the campaign. And the first thing they talked about was this Omni movement. And you'll see they talk about this if you watch the direct yourself. I mean, they just keep harping on it and harping on it and harping on it. And you could tell that it's definitely like this year's gimmick. Every year there's like one gameplay system that they act like they're reinventing the FPS genre by including in the game. And I think this is it, right? They have to have something to show to fans and shareholders like, look, it's not the same game as last year. We did this. And this is definitely it. So basically, you can sprint in all directions, which I'm not a fan of. I'm not going to give a whole rant on the movement system now. I'll probably do a whole nother video on that. I know there's possibly some movement gremlins that might out there that might clown me in the comment section. It is what it is. I'm not a fan of the super crazy movement, the bunny hops, the slide canceling, the cracked out, I call it TikTok movement, because it seems like everyone's just trying to get a ridiculous TikTok clip for it. But I think this just exacerbates that whole problem. I know people were pissed when they took out slide canceling. I was not. But, now they've kind of doubled down and now you can sprint side to side. And I think it could be kind of problematic for hit detection as well. We see issues happening now, even in X Defiant, where people talk about hit detection with how fast the characters move and the bunny hopping. And COD has had that issues in the past as well, especially with, the lag comp and latency issues that Call of Duty's netcode has. So I'm kind of worried now with all these other movement things thrown in, like what is going to happen? And I've seen some people complain and say maybe they'll ramp up auto aim or aim assist, which a whole section of the community will be mad about. I know everyone's going to scream in my comment section about how it increases the skill gap, blah, 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 but that's just not the COD that I enjoy. It's not gunplay first and map knowledge first and positioning first. It's just who can spam the craziest movement to make it physically impossible to aim at them, and then that's how you go. And I think this could be just so much worse, especially, like I said, sprinting to the side and a quicker strafing and stuff like that. They also mentioned that there's a 360-degree range of motion while prone, which I think could be interesting. I think that's pretty cool. I think maybe Battlefield had that system, if I recall correctly. You can correct me if I'm wrong there, but I think they had it, and it worked pretty cool. I did see that it could happen in midair. Like you could start out diving and in midair, like do like a barrel roll, like a corkscrew type thing, and be facing the back, which I don't know if I'm a huge fan of. Again, just what kind of implications this could have on the general meta of COD, I don't like, especially with kind of how the community is shifting. I know, call me an old head, call me, ancient, whatever you need to do, but it's just a trend that I don't like seeing, and I think this is just going to accelerate it times 10. And this is kind of unrelated to the movement aspect. There's just two things that I noticed while they were having this. They had gameplay in the background. One, doors are shown. So a lot of people were saying before launch that there's no doors in multiplayer and blah blah. I think there's going to be doors there. So big rip to anyone that hates the doors. I just kind of, who cares at this point? It doesn't really bother me positively or negatively. But I think doors might be back. So sorry, ladies and gentlemen. Next up, there's an M16 LMG, and it's shown later as well. It's like a belt fed, like, big drum mag on the bottom with a belt coming up, and it looks like a M16, has the carry handle and everything. So that's pretty cool. Again, those are just two tiny little observations that, nothing too crazy or nothing that they specifically called out, but I wanted to mention just because I thought they were cool. So they continued talking about Omni movement and the new movement systems in general, and they went into quote unquote intelligent movement, which is basically just a way to set it up so that it does some of the movement commands for you so that you don't have to be putting in as many inputs. I personally won't use it just because I don't mind, actually inputting all that stuff. It seems like a quality of life improvement. More than anything, it seems like an accessibility option, if I'm being honest, which is great, for those people that can't really do it, have the game assist them. But I have heard people already complain and screaming on Twitter about oh, it's just on autopilot now. You don't even need to play COD between aim assist and intelligent movement now and all this stuff. And I don't really think it's that big of a deal. I don't see why everyone's so pressed about it. I doubt I will ever lose a match because, somebody has the auto mantle feature on and they don't have to press A to, climb over a brick wall. I don't think it's, I could be wrong. Maybe it's terrible and maybe it's, game breaking, but I highly, highly doubt it. So not sure why everyone's mad on Twitter, but it's Twitter. That's kind of how that goes. And I'm also, kind of along with all this, I'm guessing all of this movement will be ported on over to Warzone as well. So I'm willing to bet that, whenever you play Warzone in general, it will not be using the Modern Warfare 3 movement engine. It will be using all these new bells and whistles because they kept stressing, that it will feel the same across all modes and, whatever, all their marketing slang that they used during the video. But so yeah, it seems like Warzone will now adopt all these changes as well. So I don't play Warzone. You guys know I hate it. I burned myself out on it rather. So it doesn't really bother me. But if you are into Warzone, get ready because this could be coming. And just to be frank, just as an announcement, they do not talk about Warzone at all. As a matter of fact, they have a little joke later on where the one lady asks if she can talk about it, and one of the camera guys yell "No" in the background. So no details on Warzone, and it's not just because I hate Warzone. They just straight up did not mention anything. So. So there's that. Also, the auto rotate for guns they talked about, how it kind of, I didn't really understand it, but it looks like it kind of bends around like a corner, kind of like how you would actually clear a room in real life. Again, just seems like a gimmick. It could possibly be very annoying. I know sometimes like that, like little assists like that or little animations just kind of are more a pain in the ass than they help, and it's much more to have predictable stuff happen, even if it's not as fluid or whatever. But it is what it is. And yeah, like I said before, this just seems like this year's gimmick, and they're really gonna pound on about it. And honestly, during the future kind of reveals that they have and multiplayer events, I fully suspect that they will talk nothing but Omni movement. That is the buzzword of the year. They also go on to talk about new hit regions, which again, paired with the new crazy movement options and the bad latency and hit reg problems that COD has in general, this could really suck now that everything's broken down and more calculations are being run. But overall, I think it's a great idea. I think it's a net positive, assuming that the netcode can keep up with it. And this obviously leads to new death animations because, the engine can tell more specifically, more acutely where you were hit, where you were shot, and they showed off some of those animations, and they look kind of cool. Again, not a huge deal, but just a nice little touch. Sometimes there's little details of realism that don't, negatively impact a game are really cool and kind of bring up the immersion factor. Next, they went into kind of bragging about how realistic some of the graphics are. They scanned in all these objects with photogrammetry and all this. Again, I don't think it looks any better or any worse than the last 2 years. One of my buddies had texted me and said it just looks identical to Cold War for him. He played Cold War, so again, they have to do this every year. They have to pump up, all the crazy work they've done. And this is one of the few, snippets that they didn't talk about in the video, but I will mention here. The game is going to be over 300 gigabytes. And knowing that before this event even happened and stuff like that, having that news come out, and then watching this event and having them talk about how they scanned in, each vest and helmet with photogrammetry. And I'm just thinking, like, at which point, like, is too much, you know what I mean, with a 300 gigabyte install. So I'm not going to talk too much on that. Again, it wasn't really revealed in this video, so I don't want to talk about it too much, but it is something that I thought about as I watched this portion of, like, how much of this is necessary versus just, it could have been done easier and for, 100 less gigabytes if done otherwise. Next up, they did talk about new weapons that will be added. It's a completely different weapon pool than Modern Warfare 3, so we're not doing carry forward. I think Warzone is, from what I've read, but they did stress that this is its own, launching with guns, no carry forward. So, and a bunch of them are new to COD, they said, so that'll be interesting. They're trying to use that period, the 90s and the Gulf War and stuff like that. To bring new weapons into the series. And I just wonder how they'll make them feel different from previous guns. We'll have to see, but I think, it'll be a lot easier to balance the sandbox without all of the carry forwards in there. They also mentioned dozens of attachments per weapon, which, again, as you guys know, I'm not crazy about that. In terms of, the Modern Warfare games just have way too many attachments. It's been a breath of fresh air to play X-Defiant and only have, relevant attachments, maybe a dozen per weapon or something like that. So we'll have to see how that shakes out. Hopefully they don't go too overboard with it, though, like Modern Warfare 3 and Modern Warfare 2 did. Also, just a quick note, some of the recoil didn't look too bad, so it looks like maybe they ditched the Modern Warfare method of guns kicking so bad that they hurt your shoulder in real life. So let us hope. I tend to like games with, a little lower visual recoil, at least. So next up, they talked about HUD, which is great. So they're ditching, like, obviously the old HUD. We've kind of been playing with similar HUD the last couple of years, and now it's fully customizable. So, like, you can move around your layouts and what icons display and where you want your mini map and all this stuff. You can put your HUD in the very middle of the screen they show and, like, stuff like that. And I really like this feature. I think this is really cool. I think COD, obviously we're probably just going to settle on what feels natural playing a COD game and leave things as is. But for those of you that want to customize stuff, or if you don't like some of their design decisions with the HUD, or you want to see some information but not see other stuff, you can customize it. And I think that's just a net positive. Letting people do what they want. They can have the normal boilerplate experience of just out of the box HUD, or they can customize it. I'll definitely be tweaking some settings and looking around to see if I can tailor it to be a little cooler to my experience as well. They also state that the UI and UX and the menus are going to be redone. We've already gotten a lot of leaks. Again, I don't want to talk about them too much in this video, but people have said that they're ditching a lot of the horrific UI that Modern Warfare 2 brought with it. The Hulu team designed for them or whatever. And that's really good. And they don't talk about it too much in this video about what they've done to the menus. They just kind of say that they made it easier and easier to join your friends and stuff. But they did like kind of make a point to show several screenshots, including one where it was like old UI, new UI, and like a folder, related to it on their computer, on the one developer's computer. So, they're very clearly trying to wink, wink, nudge, nudge that like, hey guys, we got rid of that horrific UI. We got new menus and stuff like that for you. So we'll have to see how much they improved that, if they improved it at all in some areas, and kind of see what we got once the game releases. Then they go on to talk about the Prestige system, which has been leaked for a while now. The Classic Prestiges are coming back, but they finally confirmed it here. Classic Prestige is back, and let me just say I am so happy. It was never anything that ruined my experience having the new like seasonal Prestiges, but I am just so happy. This is such a much better system. I enjoyed the old, Prestige system. And really, I think this is a great, move to kind of bring COD back to, hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. We tried fixing what wasn't broke and we broke it. So we're going back to what worked. So really happy to see that. There, of course, in that same vein, there will be 10 prestiges at launch, like we remember from past games, and then past that, there's 1,000 master prestige levels. And they state that there's a classified reward for people who max out. So that's pretty cool. Hopefully that reward is good. I know sometimes like the max prestige reward is very lackluster. So, hopefully the fact that they said it's classified and they made mention of it, that means that they've at least paid some more attention to it this year. And yeah, overall, just super pumped for this. I think this is a massive win. And remember, all of this is here day one. So none of that seasonal stuff where, you hit a level cap of any sort. Oh, I guess obviously level 1,000 max prestige is the level cap, but you're not only allowed to get to level 200 in season one and then 400 in season two. None of that. You just straight to 1,000 and 10 prestiges along the way. So about a total of 1,500 levels, it looks like. And yeah, super great. And you don't have to wait for next season if you want to keep leveling up. For those of you that play the game so much, you get near that level cap. And next up, they gave a little bit of information about multiplayer, but they did preface it by saying there's a deep dive happening later in the year, so they don't have too much information today. Later on, they did state that deep dive that they were mentioning would be COD Next event, and that will be August 28th. So obviously we will have some videos on this channel. Make sure you're subscribed for that right around August 28th when that happens, so we can get you all of the news and information. At that point, we'll be about 2 months out from the actual release. And they did say that they went into this, and I think they've maybe said this in the past, but they started talking about how they support 3 core play styles. And, they were talking about the supporter and the enforcer, and they give real dumb names to it, essentially running gunner and then like the objective player and all that stuff. I don't know how though. We'll have to see more information on this. I think they've tried to do that in the past, and that's when they started talking about sentinels and using all that, buzzwords and nomenclature and stuff like that. But, that's just, it's usually dumb and gimmicky, and I really hope that it doesn't ruin the experience by them trying to just, trying to funnel everyone that plays this game into 3 play styles that they deem. And they even say the gear and gadgets have been tuned for this. I really don't know what they mean by this, but I didn't get a warm and fuzzy feeling about this. We'll just have to see what they mean later on. They do, however, follow that up with banger news that theater mode is back. So that is awesome. The entire community has been asking for theater mode. I know I have. And yeah, just kind of begging for them to bring that back, especially as a content creator, and especially as a content creator that forgets to hit the record button and thus loses some of his best matches. And and then I have nothing to show you guys in videos like this. So I apologize, for all those times. But hopefully with theater mode, that way, hey, if you hit a 24-2 game, if skill-based matchmaking allows you to do so, you can always go back and record that or watch that back, send it to your friends, stuff like that. So definitely a huge win from Treyarch on that one. And then finally, for multiplayer, they do talk about maps. We'll get 16 maps day one. 12 of them will be 6v6, and 4 of them, they call them strike maps, which I guess can be played 6v6 or 4 or 2v2. So I don't know how that works. I don't know if they're like tiny maps, so like shipment style maps, which kind of blows my mind that they would have four of those type at launch. I assume they're just gunfight maps, but they did say you could play 6v6 on them. So really not sure how that works out, but either way, seems like a pretty decent offering overall, from launch. So I'm glad to see that, kind of a decent showing on day one. And then they did say they are going back to like 3-lane maps and more of a traditional layout and stuff like that. Some of the locations they showed were pretty cool. Like I liked there's like one map that looked like it took place in a strip mall. And I really enjoy that because I enjoy those kind of maps that kind of seem more down to earth, more realistic. We play so often in crazy skyscrapers or bombed out war zones and stuff like that. But it's really cool to have a match that just feels like it could be in your backyard. Like they did with that mall map, back in Call of Duty Cold War, or Black Ops Cold War. So I really enjoyed seeing that. And other than that, the maps just kind of look like your traditional COD maps. So I'm really psyched to see what the offering looks like on day one there. The one thing they did mention as well is that multiplayer canonically, I guess, takes place after campaign. Not sure if they're going to tie that in with any story beats at all, but they did say that they'll be using a lot of the locations from the campaign, but you'll be playing those locations after the campaign ends. So essentially, what it looked like, they showed a couple like almost before and after pictures. So it's almost like, hey, you play on this one area and then, the course of the campaign mission goes out and then you switch on over to multiplayer and you see, wow, this is what it looks like now after, the war's been through it, essentially, stuff like that. So that was pretty cool. And we'll have to see how that plays into the art direction of the maps going forward. And then finally, the real great stuff here, they go into zombies. And of course, like we mentioned earlier, round-based zombies are back, which I could not be happier about. They did say they're going back to the Dark Ether storyline, which I'm not a huge fan of. I was kind of hoping they'd reboot the story, get a little more grounded again, kind of a World at War era story and maybe early Black Ops story. That was just a little more grounded, and to me that was a little more immersive than, this crazy Dark Ether stuff and everything like that. But that is kind of the storyline that they are going back to. They did confirm there will be 2 round-based zombie maps at launch, so that is awesome. It does look like from some of the gameplay and everything that there will be several types of zombies. Not just like your traditional zombies. So stuff like special zombies and boss zombies will be coming back. And then they did say that, this is going to be a massive return for round-based zombies and kind of a return to form. So hopefully they have given us enough care and it comes out looking really good. And finally, they just said, kind of like multiplayer, they would be sharing more details later in the coming weeks and months there. So I'm excited to get more and more info about zombies, how it works, stuff like that. And so that about wraps it up of they kind of give like a conclusion summary type thing. But that's about the end of the information that they gave. Overall, I think it was a pretty good, in-depth look at the game. Obviously, this isn't meant to be like a full gameplay reveal like COD Next will be, obviously. And a lot of the footage is still early gameplay or, alpha gameplay, pre-release stuff. But overall, it looks pretty good. I'm not going to lie to you, I'm very worried. At this point in time, again, my opinion could change. But as of right now, I'm a little worried about the Omni movement system and how that will affect, basically how people play the multiplayer. And so definitely hit me with the get good and adapts down there in the comment section because I know it's coming. But I'm just not looking forward to that. And then obviously they didn't talk about it here, but we assume the skill-based or engagement-optimized matchmaking algorithms are coming back despite all of their transparency or lack thereof, since they lied a lot in those, quote unquote transparent, blog posts. But overall, it's kind of hard to get super hyped about the multiplayer at this point. I'm sure at COD Next we'll get a lot of info that hopefully will boost that hype. But, just stuff like that, I've learned that it ruins the core functionality of, you can have really cool guns or really cool maps and the prestige system, which is great, and theater mode, which is awesome. These are all huge wins. But the fun of the game mode comes from the second to second, minute to minute gameplay. And a lot of that comes down to the matchmaking algorithm, the lag slash latency issues that are usually caused by the matchmaking algorithm putting you in horrible lobbies just because they can't find anyone of your skill level. And so, that just, you kind of already know what you're getting before you jump in. And hopefully I'm wrong about the omnidirectional movement. But other than that, I think a lot of this game looks really good. Obviously, I'll be getting it. I talked earlier, I didn't know if I would get it. I will be getting it, especially since it's free with Game Pass. So that was the other big thing. COD is finally coming to Game Pass. So if you're like me, if you have Xbox Game Pass, make sure to cop that. At the very least, it's a free COD experience for you, which is pretty cool. And you can also get like the upgrade for $30. You can get like the Vault Edition, stuff like that. So, yeah, I'll definitely be getting it, and I'll be covering more news as it becomes available. Maybe in the next couple of days, like I said, I'll cover some of the more information that was leaked on Twitter that they didn't talk about in this video that content creators have been able to play the game and give some answers on, and I'll give my thoughts on that as well. So, if you enjoyed this video, if you stuck around this long, make sure to hit that like button as it helps a bunch more people find this channel as we try to grow to 1,000 subs. And if you'd like to see more content like this, make sure to click that sub button rather. And obviously, I want to hear your thoughts down in the comment section below. Make sure to let me know what you thought of this direct, and if you disagree with me on any of the points above, make sure to state your case below. And yeah, let me know if you guys are planning on getting it, if you guys are pumped. And yeah, other than that, I will catch you in the next one.